I will dispense with my elongated presentation then. My name is Donna Marie Collins. I am the hearing examiner that will be presiding over the case this morning, Pine Island Road CPD. All testimony and evidence that I accept during these hearings must be taken in under oath. Therefore, I will administer the oath to everyone in the room who will be speaking today. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you give will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. I'm ready to begin.
All right. Good morning. Alexis Crespo, representing the applicant. I have a binder containing our PowerPoint and our 48-hour letter with exhibits.
Thank you.
We do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll introduce the team and then address the 48-hour letter. Joining me here today is Chris Lascano with Phoenix & Associates, who is the applicant. I am Alexis Crespo with RVI Planning, the planner on the project. We have Brett Navarrete, who's not listed on the slide, but his resume is attached to the 48-hour letter, as well as Diogo Rodriguez, who are the civil engineers with Infinity Engineering. Ted Treese is here with TR Transportation, and Barrett Stetchel prepared the environmental report with the plan developed.
Is this a member of your team?
Are you here for the hearing, sir?
It depends. I probably am just lost. I'm sorry.
Pine Island Road CPD
Yeah, right there.
at across from Merchants Crossing.
Yes.
You are in the right place.
Okay.
Okay. You have received a 48-hour letter outlining 3 items from the applicant. The first is just a minor clerical item to change the 10,000 square foot of mini warehouse to 100,000 square foot of mini warehouse. I believe that was just a Scribner item. We are asking for the addition of public warehouse to the schedule of uses. I know this has occurred in a case recently. In this case, the legal advertisement didn't specify the type of warehousing. Our master concept plan had self-storage listed. We discussed with staff, and these are public and mini warehouse. Or for retail use, the public is accessed internally, whereas mini warehouse is accessed from external doors. But we were in agreement that it's in terms of form, function, scale, the ITE code that directs the parking requirements as well as the trip generation does not change with the addition of that use. So we won't let that happen again and would respectfully request that be added to the schedule of uses today. And Ted can provide more testimony during his portion of the presentation on that. The second item was related to an internal buffer requirement. Because the site is partially in the mixed use overlay, not to jump into the hearing parts, but because the site is partially in the mixed use overlay within the North Fort Myers planning community and subject to Chapter 33, and then also has certain uses that trigger Chapter 34 supplementary buffering requirements, we were dealing with Chapter 10, Chapter 33, and Chapter 34 buffers to arrive at the required buffers in this project. And the 48-hour letter from your staff and the staff report indicated that we did not need deviation 3, which was for the internal access road. The staff had opined that because it's within the mixed-use overlay, a 5-foot type A buffer is required along that roadway. We are providing 15-foot type B for continuity on the roadway, so we actually exceed the buffer requirement. However, our 48-hour letter withdrew the deviation in agreement with staff. We kicked it around a little bit more this morning, and as you noted, the mixed-use overlay is not applicable to like this area of the site. So we believe this segment of the access road still needs that deviation. Not the entirety of it, but just that segment of it. And that would be a 20-foot type D buffer per the Chapter 33 requirements.
So deviation 3 is back in?
In a modified format where it's only applicable, it would only be keyed to this area.
And is that reflected in the 48-hour?
No, we just arrived at that.
All right,
this
so I'll be
morning.
receiving a new master concept plan?
We would Yes, we believe if we had the record open until Friday, that would be sufficient
Can I
time.
please take a seat in the gallery?
No, no. So yes, and we can walk through that in more detail during the presentation, but yes. And
Am
then
I receiving a master concept plan today here, or is the record going to be left open?
we will need to leave the record open. And the third item in the 48-hour letter was related to the Indigenous Preserve and stormwater. You can see there's a centralized or master stormwater management area near the preserve. This was redesigned through the process of staff review, and the initial stormwater narrative that staff had on file indicated that the preserve area would attenuate into the upland preserve area, which staff took exception to, as that could potentially threaten the upland species. So we revised our stormwater narrative in your 48-hour letter to indicate that this stormwater area will not interface with the preserve. This will remain an upland. We will not try to hydrate it through the stormwater management design. And that is also included in your package. So with that, I'll go through the presentation and ask members of our team to provide testimony related to their role in the project. For this testimony, I've been accepted as an expert in land use, the Lee County Land Development Code and Comp Plan, and would request to be treated as an expert here today. Thank you. The request before you this morning is to rezone a subject property which is just under 10 acres in size. It's a mix of commercial zoning districts C1 and C1A. It also has agricultural zoning applicable to the southern and eastern or western limits of it, and we are proposing to rezone to a unified commercial plan development. This would allow for a mix of commercial uses appropriate at this arterial intersection. We are seeking 100,000 square foot of self-storage, which could be either mini warehouse, public warehouse, or a hybrid version of both. We are seeking a 4,000 square foot car wash. There was a car wash previously on the site that was demolished a few years ago. 2,500 square foot of auto repair services requested, 7,800 square foot of commercial retail uses. And then we have a parcel where we're proposing either a fast food restaurant or a convenience store with fuel pumps, up to 16 pumps.
Okay, so I'm not clear. My understanding was you're requesting the first several bullets, the 100,000 square foot of mini warehouse, the 4,000 foot car wash, the 2,500 square foot auto repair, then convenience store with 16 fuel pumps, or option B, which is 5,000 square foot fast food restaurant and 7,800 square foot commercial retail uses. Is that not what it is?
The car
Because this is very confusing.
noted, and they're still trying to pin down end users.
So is it the first four and either 5 or 6? Or is it the first 5? I mean, I don't understand what the alternatives are.
It is the first 4 and either the gas station or fast food.
So in the staff report where it says 7,800 square feet commercial retail, that should be grouped above the convenience store with gas pumps or fast food.
This is what the narrative was in the request. That's what was in the staff report. The or is what Madam Hearing Examiner.
Our master concept plan shows, well, not to go out of order again, but it's important and a good point. We show the fast food option. So in this fast food option, you have the 4 static uses, the car wash, the self-storage, the auto repair, the retail, and the fast food.
That's 5.
So these 4 remain static. This is fast food. The alternative would be this would be converted to a gas station or convenience store with fuel pumps.
Okay, so let's go back to what you have on your PowerPoint.
Oh, sorry. And
Okay, so
would
this
be helpful if I
78
had-
square foot retail commercial use is happening regardless of whether it's fast food or a convenience store with gas pumps.
correct.
Okay. How was the transportation analyzed then?
Ted,
Because this is a little different than what was presented.
Ted will be
narrative.
presenting on it. We did the worst case scenario, which is, well, I believe it's run both ways.
So did the transportation consider either convenience store or fast food and 7,800 square feet commercial retail? Or did it analyze everything and either convenience store or fast food? Because everything in the report so far is contrary to what's on the screen today.
And Ted Frisch will be presenting as part of the application. In your 48-hour letter, we noted that the traffic study was outdated that you received in your package. And so we provided an updated traffic study that was submitted to staff in February of this year. That traffic study analyzes 7,800 square foot of retail, 100,000 square foot of self-storage, 2,500 square foot of auto repair, a 4,000 square foot car wash, so those static items, and then the gas station or fast food.
Okay. Thank you.
And I believe Ted will testify to this, but the worst case scenario was the convenience store with gas pumps, fuel pumps. And so that was in the revised traffic study. I do apologize. That is confusing.
Okay.
All right, so those are the summation of uses. The subject property is located at the southwest intersection of Pine Island Road, North Cleveland Avenue in the North Fort Myers planning community. This is an intensive urban area of the county, well served by public infrastructure. Zooming in on the site, you can see the underlying future land use category. It's bifurcated between intensive development shown in the pink, which is about 5 acres of the site. That's along those arterial frontages. The yellow depicts outlying or sub-outlying suburban, which applies to the southern portions of the site, as well as that western edge shown in yellow, where we have reduced the intensity of uses to comply with future land use, as we'll discuss in the presentation. The property is partially within your mixed-use overlay, which encumbers the frontage of the property. Just under 4 acres of the site, shown in purple, is within that mixed-use overlay. And then lastly, we are in a mix of C1, C1A, and Ag 2 zoning districts currently. In terms of surrounding uses, again, this is in a urbanized area of the county, as you can see from the level of development surrounding the subject property. To our north, we have a development of regional impact and planned development zoning district known as Merchants Crossing. This has several big box retailers, restaurants. It's been recently redeveloped with an apartment component, so a very dense, intense mixed-use project immediately to our north. As you go to the east, you have a Walmart big box retailer, as well as commercial outparcels along the North Cleveland Avenue frontage. To our immediate west, on the west side of Heron Drive, rather, there are some single-family residents remaining in the Ag 2 zoning district that have been developed for many years and are certainly feeling the effects of the changing nature of the surrounding area, but we have buffered them carefully, as we'll walk through in the presentation today. And also important to note, you enter into the city of Cape Coral as you move further west down Pine Island Road. This is the Judd Creek PDP area, and this is multifamily dwelling units developed at densities up to 25 units per acre per their future land use. This is our proposed master concept plan. We have a right-in, right-out off of North Cleveland Avenue. We also have a right-in, right-out off of Pine Island Road. We have a tertiary access point off of Heron Drive as well. There are no access points onto Pineapple Lane. It is understood Heron Road is substandard, and we will have to improve the roadway up to our driveway in accordance with Chapter 10 of the LDC. We're not seeking any relief from that requirement. We've talked about the use areas. Our master concept plan is showing the fast food option. In terms of those use areas, the fast food will be located at the corner of the site. As you move south, we have the 7,800 square foot retail building that could include a variety of goods and service type uses. The auto repair building is further south in the property. We have the 100,000 square foot of self-storage. It's important to note the sub-outlying suburban is roughly kind of this area of the site as you saw on the future land use map. So we did locate the lesser intense uses of self-storage in that location for compatibility with the future land use category.
But isn't the car wash also in that category?
The car wash, yes, is located within the sub-outlying suburban portion of the site. In terms of our buffering, we have provided 30-foot type F buffering, which is your most stringent buffering, along Heron Drive to ensure compatibility. While located further east, there was a car wash here for many years at the corner on a portion of the subject property. Not necessarily in the exact location as shown, but that has been a use on the property. We have an acre of consolidated upland preserve area in the southern portion of the site. Because it's consolidated, we get to apply the bonus allowed in Chapter 10, and so we feel that's a good design as it gives a nice contiguous swath of preserve instead of patches throughout the project. It's also integrated or located adjacent to our stormwater management. Will not be integrated, but located adjacent there too, and so that provides transition as you move south towards Pineapple. In terms of our buffers, we have 25-foot type D buffers along both arterial frontage, and that's a requirement per Chapter 33, well, Chapter 34 because of the nature of our uses triggering supplementary buffering standards. So 25 feet to provide a nice contiguous, consistent buffering around the property. For the portions of the project that abut Pineapple, we will provide a 15-foot type D buffer. Where we have preserve, we're not providing a buffer on that western edge, but we will have, as I noted, 30-foot type F buffers, which is the most dense, widest buffer in those areas along Heron Road to screen the single-family uses to the other side of the roadway. And then internally, we are proposing a 15-foot type D buffer along that internal drive aisle to further improve the project. As noted, we would like to submit a revised schedule of deviations and justifications as well as a revised MCP to incorporate a deviation here to allow that buffer to be 15 feet. Beth and I, in looking at it again this morning, realized it technically should be 30 feet or 20 feet in this area, and we would like to seek that deviation. It will allow for a contiguous buffer along that drive aisle. We also, because we're doing an enhanced buffer with the 15 feet in these areas, we'll have compensatory buffering as well to offset the nature of that deviation.
Isn't that your dumpster right there? In that corner? Up,
This is a dumpster location.
up.
That
there.
and this is a dumpster, yes.
And that's across from a house, right?
There are residences on this side of the roadway, yes.
Okay.
This is approximately 100 plus feet between the dumpster facility and the property line,
Between the what?
between the dumpster and the property line in terms of separation. And so I've outlined for you we do meet the open space provisions. We also have on-site usable open space depicted, meet the indigenous requirements, and the only buffering deviation would apply for this segment of the internal access way. All external buffers meet or exceed the land development code. We do have existing sidewalk facilities surrounding the project, as well as a Lee-Tran stop in approximately this location with a covered bus shelter.
So there's a Lee-Tran stop on 41 there?
Yes.
And is there one on Pine Island Road as well?
I don't believe there is one on our frontage on Pine Island Road.
Okay, so that's 140, but Route 595 goes on Pine Island Road, but there's no stop right now.
No stop on our
Okay.
property. We have two deviations. Again, we'd like to keep the record open to add a third for that buffer segment. Our first deviation is to allow for a 56-foot wide parking lot entrance, whereas the code limits it to 35 feet, and that is along Heron Road to allow for appropriate turning movements and a little bit larger turn radius for any larger vehicles that may be entering from that location. Staff has recommended approval.
So is it the intention to route the tanker trucks down Heron Road to serve the gas station?
Ideally not, but it's a possibility, and so we wanted to design to that standard.
Okay. Is
Deviation.
there a master concept plan for me to see with the gas station on it, since you're designing for it?
I believe in discussions with staff, it was preferred that we do not have two separate master concept plans.
So where would it be configured on the site?
It would be in this location at the north east corner.
So that small area can accommodate the store and all the pumps?
I will defer to our civil engineer. They will provide testimony a little bit later in our presentation.
Okay, I'd like additional testimony on that, please.
Deviation 2 is related to the self-storage parking requirement. Ted Treach prepared a parking demand study. This was based on also a previously approved parking demand study for Arborwood. Staff has reviewed the data and analysis and also recommended approval of this deviation. We would note that it would apply to both mini warehouse and public warehouse. As Ted will testify, the ITE treats these uses the same. They both fall under ITE code 151 mini warehouse. So that document would not need to change based on the addition of public warehouses. They function the same from a traffic standpoint.
So the ITE study is showing that the parking demand is less than what the land development code requires? Is that the point
Correct.
you're trying to make?
Correct, yes. It supports one space for 50 units as opposed to one space for 25 units, with in all cases, a minimum of 5 spaces, which, based on our square footage, would be tripped. This is just simply, to the extent relevant, stating the definitions of warehouse, mini warehouse public, and mini warehouse in the code definitions, and they are even tied together via their definitions. It's just a function of how they're accessed by the patrons, with public being indoor units and mini warehouse being the kind of garage door style of units. So I've covered these points. They function the same. Both are going to be retail style self-storage, and staff agreed that the parking demand analysis did not need further review upon addition of that use. Deviation 3 will be modified and added back in to apply to only one segment and discuss the compensatory plantings elsewhere on the site. And the intent to create a consistent buffer along that internal access way. Hi. Okay. I will turn it over to Barrett Studgall to discuss the environmental.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Madam Baird, State School with Bear Paws Environmental. I missed the swearing in this morning. If you'd like to do it now, I can.
You swear affirm the testimony and evidence you place into the record will be the truth?
Yes, ma'am. All right, good morning. I've done the species survey environmental assessment on this one. There were no species identified on site. There were no wetlands. The overall parcel was previously disturbed. There were home sites that previously existed on site that have been removed. You can see several driveway pads and whatnot. It was a very disturbed site overall, but the preserve being provided will meet LDC requirements. We're doing a planting plan to
So remove exotics
remove exotics and replant.
and replant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Brett Navarro will discuss the infrastructure. He has not testified in this forum previously, so his resume was included in your 48-hour letter.
Good morning.
Good morning. If you would just take a few minutes and go over your educational and work background, and then I can qualify you as an expert in civil engineering or
Yes, ma'am.
whatever.
Graduated from University of South Florida with a bachelor's of civil engineering. I'm engineer intern certified. I'm an owner of an engineering firm, so I'm managing partner of my firm. We employ about 75 engineers. I've been working in this county, particularly since 1997. The gas station up there that was previously demoed was one of my projects when I was just a little kid. So we have a lot of history here. Right now we have over a dozen current projects within Lee County under the DOs. We have several under construction with Phoenix. So we have a lot of experience in this county.
Okay, you may proceed.
Okay, so from an infrastructure perspective, for sewer, it is FGA, and there is force mains on both Pine Island and also on Cleveland. So the overall system will require a sewer pump station in order to connect to it. There is potable water both on Pine Island, Cleveland, and also on Pineapple. The major lines are on Cleveland and also on Pine Island. So
Are we talking about water or sewer now?
potable water.
Okay.
Yeah. Sewer is sewer force mains by F2A. They're located on Cleveland, adjacent to the property, and they're located on Pine Island, adjacent to our property. So it's easy connection, but it will require a sewer pump station. So potable water and fire main flow. It is available from the southern property line, which is Pineapple. It's available on the east property line, which is Cleveland, and it's available on the north property line, which is Pine Island, all within adjacent to the property. So it's very easy connections. Stormwater, as we said, originally we had the preserve on the southern portion, so the idea was to have the dry detention. It would overflow into the preserve and maintain flows. But then we moved it to the north, and so that's where the confusion came in. So we will have a master system for stormwater. Everything will drain to it, but it will bypass the preserve system. Our outfall historically is to the southwest at the corner of Hearing and Pineapple. It goes into the creek system, or it goes into the ditch system. Then there is a head wall and culvert that goes to the west, and eventually discharges to the wetlands. It ultimately discharges to the adjacent creeks and makes its way to the river. So we will design the system in accordance with South Florida Water Management District and Lee County design requirements.
So the reason why it couldn't filter through the open space area was why?
Well,
Because that preserve is upland hardwood,
Yeah.
and staff consistently does not want stormwater
They're afraid of it,
discharging
yeah.
to an upland.
Well, afraid will degrade it by inundating
So
the water.
the water will fall on that area as it has historically.
Historically, yes,
And
ma'am.
then on the impervious areas of your site will be directed to this large stormwater feature. And then nutrients will filter the bottom. When it gets to a certain level, it's going to spill out into a swale system that eventually makes its way to the Caloosahatchee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
And I've done gas, petroleum design my entire career, so I can also address your question about the tanker movements. So one of your concerns is about how we'd bring the tanker in. The way tankers work is you can set a system, you can set a route to the drivers. So we would never bring a driver down a residential or local roadway. All the tanker deliveries are coming from 75. So they'll come from 75 down in Pine Island, make the left turn, and they'll go into our right in, right out driveway on Cleveland. And that'll be routed to the gas station itself. We would never bring large design vehicles on the local roadway. And you can set up with the terminal the pathway and the route that needs to be done.
Well, I don't have a layout of your convenience store option, so I have no
Correct, yeah.
idea. Are they
I
going to be
understand
able
that,
to
yeah.
navigate the site? You know, is that going to be the only way they're going to be able to get out?
It would be,
And
yes.
I see that's,
Well,
I see a
this is what-
compatibility issue there because we have a large step down. And even though this area is being encroached by urban, right, the city of
yes.
Cape Coral and this intensive, it is an established residential area, as I've already done my site check. So I think that we need to be sensitive to it. And I think the site design has taken pains to increase the buffer there along that road.
ma'am.
But, the value of that is going to be severely diminished if we're going to be having, these large tanker trucks going up and down that street.
There will be no need for tanker trucks. It's an easier, think about when you're coming from 75, how would you get to Heron? You wouldn't. There's a raised landscape, there's a raised median there.
Right.
The only way they would do is go through the
My
intersection to
concern is
proceed south.
exiting more so than entering. That was my concern.
Well, the owner, whoever develops the gas station, can require the tankers to use certain driveways. There is a process for that.
Okay.
We did that. Like when I did corporate ExxonMobil, and we would go to the fleet, we'd go to delivery, and we'd have an approved path. And this was put up in the car, put up in the gas station, and that's how they entered the site, and that's how they exit the site, by our approved path. And so we will do part of our, once we know, this is master concept, so once we get into the engineering, we will design everything so it flows, it has good turn movements, and we can facilitate these movements. Because tanker needs, over 90 feet to make these 90-degree turns. So we'll dive more into that when, one, we figure out what the exact users are. This is concept level right now. And then you also asked, how would it fit in that little area for the fast food? It wouldn't. If we were to do a gas station, we would take the retail and the fast food and combine that and create the gas station, really where the historical mobile was since '97.
Right.
So yes, it would flow very easily. It's barely what you have today, except the driveway for the mobile is being pushed further south. So it would come in and go out.
Right. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Sure. Yeah, we've been working on lots of concept plans, and everything's kind of fluctuating. What
Right, because right now you don't have an end user.
we don't have any end users. Yeah. Well, we do have the mini storage, mini warehouse, the public. Yeah. So that's set, and that's
Of
actually
course, because nobody wants to get rid of their stuff.
well, it's actually a very good.
Places to keep our stuff.
From a perspective of separation from residential, it's a very good use. It's low intense, it's quiet,
You don't have to convince me.
Yeah.
I see
Okay.
many of them.
Yeah. Can I answer other questions?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the clarification on the stormwater and also on the gas station.
All right, thank you.
And now Ted Trish will. The notebook with the 48-hour, that is applicant exhibit A, and the notebook is applicant exhibit 1.
Good morning. Ted Shreesh, TR Transportation Consultants. We did the traffic study and also the parking analysis that was supported with the deviation request for the self-storage use. As was previously discussed, the traffic study was submitted based on the worst case, and the TIS was submitted as part of the 48-hour letter. It wasn't part of the initial staff report package. There was a sufficiency response that was included in the staff report package that was part of the application. But I wanted you to have the original traffic study because that does include the full analysis, all the intersection analysis and everything that went into the basis of the application. And as Alexis said, because of the different options that were available, we had to look at the worst case. And so we looked at the two options as was previously discussed, the option with the fast food and then the option with the gas convenience use, with the other uses included. And based on the overall trip generation of the project and the impacts, the external impacts that it would have, the gas convenience use generated the highest impacts in terms of traffic and impacts to the external roadways. So we carried that forward in our analysis. If the fast food use were to be selected as the end user, the trip generation for the overall project would be less than what we analyzed in this report. So the overall impacts would be less. We did meet with the Florida Department of Transportation to talk about, if I could go back to the master concept plan. First, just looking at the aerial, the existing station did have a right-in, right-out on Pine Island Road. It's right here within that existing right turn lane. This is a right turn lane as you're coming eastbound on Pine Island. And then there was a right-in, right-out right here on US 41. So we met with DOT early on in the process. It's been quite a long time ago. This project has been going on for quite some time. DOT, we're going to lengthen the right turn lane on Pine Island Road as part of the application. That's what's shown on the master concept plan. And this driveway will be converted to a right-in only at DOT's request. The right-in, right-out on US 41 is currently in this location, and we're shifting that down further away from the traffic signal, approximately midpoint in the property, to create a little bit more separation and to allow a right turn lane to be constructed on US 41.
So you'll be adding a right turn there, right turn on Pine Island Road, extending it a little further.
Right.
And then a new right turn along the frontage.
A right turn lane, yes, along the frontage for the right in, right out on 41. And then obviously, as discussed, bless you, adding the access onto Heron. And again, there was no access on Pineapple Lane. So obviously with the commercial traffic, most of the traffic is going to be concentrated onto the arterial roadways. There'll be some trips that'll come onto Heron, but it'll be primarily limited to the principal trips to the back end users, the self-storage, which is a low traffic generator, small user at the south end, but its primary access will be directly to on US 41.
So I have a question regarding the parking deviation. The footprint for the warehouse building, does that include the parking area in that footprint? Or where is the parking area to support that?
That would be a question for
Okay.
someone else besides me.
All
I
right.
didn't do the site plan, so.
Would you like me to answer? No. The parking area for the mini warehouse is here. These would be parking spaces.
Thank you.
Level service analysis, there was sufficient capacity on both 41 and Pine Island to our east. Pine Island to the west has some level service deficiencies as a 4-lane road. FDOT is embarking on a PD&E study to look at future improvements on Pine Island as you go further west into the city of Cape Coral, but that process is just beginning to start, so.
But didn't I see in your TIS that Pine Island Road west of 41 is operating below level of service and
Yes.
at build out
Yes, and that's an existing condition.
with and without the project?
Without the project, right. And that's why I said FDOT is, that's not a new condition, that's been like that for several years, and it's now on FDOT's radar, and they're starting to look at, as I said, a PD&E study a little further to the west for future improvements to Pine Island as Cape Coral and areas to the west start to grow and traffic starts to increase. But that's one reason why FDOT asked for the longer turn lane as well, to help this intersection improve a little bit, so folks could also get into this turn lane a little quicker to be able to turn south onto 41. So getting into the parking, the analysis really piggybacked onto a previous application that, and I'm not sure if you heard that case or not. It was the Arborwood self-storage. Okay, that was the other hearing examiner. We conducted a study in Lee County of actual facilities in Lee County of these type of facilities. We surveyed, I believe it was 7 existing facilities in Lee County and somewhere in the city of Fort Myers. But similar self-storage indoor of these new prototype self-storage facilities that are not the typical mini warehouse where you have the single story where they're all exterior access, but these indoor self-storage facilities. And did that parking study in conjunction with the methodologies of ITE, submitted that to Development Services, went through a number of reviews with Development Services staff, resurveyed several different properties, and that study showed, as Alexis indicated, that the parking demand was significantly lower than what the Land Development Code was requiring for that type of facility. So in that case, the Arborwood case, staff agreed to a much lower parking requirement, and this case was being submitted about that same time that we were wrapping up that application. So we submitted that parking study in support of this deviation request. So that parking study was submitted and staff agreed. And so the facilities are very similar. They're access from interior. The doors are interior. They are in high demand. I use 2 of them myself, and they are hard to find. Most of them are 100% occupied, so they are in high demand. But
This facility is going to have access on the first floor from bays, but also the option to go inside. It looked like that from one of the photos.
yeah, some of them have access on the ground level from the outside. They'll have doors from the outside as a convenience to customers if you want on the first floor to have a door from the outside, but the majority of the units are accessed from interior. And some of the sites we surveyed had access from the outside. 2 of the sites actually had buildings around the perimeter that had outdoor access as well, but the majority were multi-story, 3-story buildings with interior storage units, exactly similar to what's being proposed here. So that concludes my comments. We're in agreement with what in the staff report, there was an attachment from staff summarizing our traffic study. And they accurately represented what was in our report. Our application, and from a transportation aspect, is consistent with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, and I'd be more than happy to answer any other questions if you had any.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Any questions? I was curious, Alexis, in the sub-outlying suburban land use category, can you go up to 45 feet?
Let me refer to the land development code.
Okay.
While I'm pulling that up, the car wash use certainly would be lower in height, but the 45 would be relevant to the self-storage, which is an outlying suburban.
Okay, I'll give you a minute to look that up.
Yes,
It is permitted?
yes.
Okay.
you.
And then I'd like staff and the applicant also tell me whether they've considered hours of operation on the car wash use at that location on the site. I noticed there was no condition regarding it. Has there been any discussion on that whatsoever?
There has not been, but throughout the presentation and based upon your comments, I have a list of items that I think we definitely need to address. And since we're keeping the record open, we can submit not only a revised master concept plan and deviations, but also revised conditions to address some of the things we heard to ensure compatibility of the project. And with that in mind, it really does lay the foundation for lead plan consistency. So what the notes I've written include a dumpster setback from Heron Drive. We noticed there was some dumpsters that looked, within 30 to 40 feet of the roadway. It's kind of covered by, these ones in particular, this one's at least 100 foot. We can shift, we can eliminate and then shift based on discussions with the applicant. So we can summarize this certainly after rebuttal as well, but.
On the other side of the building would probably be preferred.
Right. So yes, taking another look at the dumpsters. We also, based on Brett's testimony, having appropriate signage throughout the site to ensure there's no truck traffic on Heron Drive, and we can re-examine that deviation to the extent that truck traffic is going to be precluded from accessing Heron and forced to come in from Cleveland and or Pine Island, as Brett noted. So truck signage. And then while the request does have the 4 uses with fast food interchanged for gas and the option, the testimony was if the gas is pursued, it will occur on this portion of the site. There will be no retail. The 7,800 square foot would go away. That is what I clearly heard is needed to accommodate the gas. So I think we need to.
Okay, so the way it was presented then is correct. It's either the first 4, the 7,800 commercial only goes with the fast food, does not go with
The first 3 are with
Regardless.
either option regardless. And then it turns into 7,500 square foot convenience food beverage with fuel pump, or the remaining 2. We did run our traffic study assuming the retail was there in both scenarios. So we looked at it from a traffic standpoint, but we don't need.
You're saying geometrically it probably would not work.
Correct. Correct.
Because the mini storage that's a lock on that.
That is, yes,
So this area right at the intersection is still
in flux, yes,
in
ma'am.
flux.
And to the extent it was critical to your recommendation, we can provide an alternative master concept plan that provides that option to you. It seems we've spent some time on that, so we certainly don't want to complicate things further, but if that was critical, we can discuss that.
I'm not certain I need to actually see the configuration. My concern is protecting the residents along Heron Road, which if it didn't have the land use category, the site didn't have the land use category, dramatic step down in intensity on the site, right? Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be as big an issue. But because of that, I feel as though there needs to be greater sensitivity to adjacent uses along Heron Road, and a dramatic step down in intensity, I believe, is warranted in this case. So to the extent you want to revisit your site plan, that's great. I was thinking certainly restrictions on the hours of operation of the car wash. At a minimum, if you're going to keep it at that location, but this is what I'm thinking.
Sure.
And the dumpster location is also critical because, you know, the dump trucks are going to come down that street probably, and they come sometimes as early as 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So I think there needs to be a sensitivity to that, because Heron Road is really a very sleepy residential street. And even though they're not that far away from the most intense uses along 41, the site is bifurcated by that land use category. So I think a little extra sensitivity to that in the concept plan is probably warranted in this instance.
Yes, we can absolutely address all those items. So to wrap up our presentation so you can hear from the public and staff rather, as outlined in the staff report and our data and analysis, the application is consistent with the LEED plan. It certainly can have enhanced consistency with the LEED plan through forthcoming conditions related to that outlying suburban edge on the west side of the site. The majority of the property is in intensive development. This is where the most intensive uses are appropriate. We have located the more intensive uses in that portion of the site as it correlates also to the arterial frontage. And so the intensities uses are consistent with the intensive development future land use category. In terms of the outlying suburban, we have located just the mini warehouse, preserve open space, and the car wash within that future land use category. The buffer treatment between the residential uses and that outlying suburban area is the type F buffer, which is the most stringent buffer in your code. Just so the public is aware, that buffer will contain 10 trees per 100 linear feet, so the most dense planting of trees. Also, it will include a hedgerow to provide some opaque screening as well of the use, and that is planted at 4 feet and maintained at 5 feet in height.
Do you
Within
have an illustration of that for the public?
We don't, but we can bring that back to you. In terms of development location, this is outlined well in your staff report. This is at an arterial intersection, partially in your mixed-use overlay, which also is indicative that is a desirous area for intensification of uses and urban levels of development. We have water, sewer necessary to serve the project, as well as transportation facilities. Policy 5.1.5. This is addressed via the location of uses on the plan, the proposed buffering, height limitations, and through our subsequent submittal, we will further address some compatibility measures through hours of operation limitations, truck traffic limitations, et cetera. Goal 6 and the supportive policies relate to commercial land uses. Again, appropriate considering the infrastructure in the area, the location on an arterial intersection, historical use of the property, and compliance with provisions and performance standards for commercial land uses, including supplementary regulations in Chapter 34. A portion of the site is within that mixed-use overlay. The proposed intensive uses are consistent with that overlay. Goal 17 relates to North Fort Myers community planning area and the requirement for public meetings. We did conduct our community meeting in February of this year before the Design Review Board of North Fort Myers during their monthly meeting, and they were recommending approval of the project to the extent that's relevant. We did not have members of the public attend that meeting. Goal 30 are the design standards for North Fort Myers that are further provided for in Chapter 33 of the Land Development Code. With our revised submittal, we will have one deviation from the North Fort Myers 20-foot right-of-way buffer that's applicable only to the internal buffer and for a segment of that, which will be compensated through additional plantings along the entirety of that access way for a nice consistent screening internal to the project. We do meet all other use directives as well as enhanced buffering along Pine Island and North Cleveland Avenue, which is again the 25-foot type D, consistent with 34 as well. And then you've heard from our stormwater engineer that the design is a master stormwater design for the project to outfall in accordance with historical flowing patterns and will be designed to all applicable state regulations. We are in agreement with staff that the proposed plan development meets the criteria of the Land Development Code, that will be compatible with existing and planned uses based upon the conditions and site design, which will be further amended after today. We have sufficient access from 2 arterial roadways to support the proposed uses. The impacts have been addressed through the traffic study or consultation with DOT in terms of additional improvements to ensure functional access to the site and really improve access over what it was historically by shifting some of those access points. And through conditions forthcoming regarding Heron Road, we can further limit the impact of any transportation onto that neighborhood. The project will not adversely impact environmentally critical or sensitive areas. We don't have any wetlands. We are preserving the highest quality available uplands in a contiguous location on the site. We are served by urban services as demonstrated by the application. The uses are appropriate at the proposed locations. The proposed conditions as well as forthcoming conditions will provide safeguards, and the deviations will enhance the achievement of the plan development code as well and provide for the flexibility intended for these zoning districts. So with that, we are in agreement with the staff report, with the changes noted in the 48-hour letter and other items we'll discuss before we close out the hearing today. This is an appropriate use of the property, the commercial uses. This is an arterial intersection. Granted, we do need to address the interface with sub-outlying lower density future land use, as well as this a single-family street to our west, which we will continue to address. And we are consistent with your land development code and lead plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't dispute that commercial is appropriate at this intersection. I think residential uses would be inappropriate at this location, but I'd like to see more attention to transition, as I mentioned before, and questioning whether do we have to have an access onto Heron at all, because we're going to be widening it to accommodate large trucks. So it's almost inviting it to be used. And I'm wondering if the idea is the traffic circulation for service vehicles is going to be in and out of the Cleveland access or Pine Island Road. Are we inviting these heavy trucks, these tankers or whatever, to be using this back road? Just something to think about. I'm going to take a 5-minute break before we start with the staff's presentation. I'll come in shortly after 10:05. Thank you.
Well, I was gonna say, we could
Good morning. We're back on the record with applicant's presentation. Staff's presentation.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Beth Workman. I'm a principal planner in the zoning section. I've been accepted as an expert in land development code and Lee plan, and I wish to be accepted today as well.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. I probably should have done this at the beginning, but I do have the affidavit of publication for the hearing, and I have the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. I'll mark that as applicants exhibits 2 and 3. For the court reporter, staff exhibit 2 and 3. Staff exhibit 1 was the staff report. Okay, thank you. The affidavit is exhibit 2. Staff exhibit 2. Thank you. I'm ready.
The case before you today is DCI 2023-00015 Pine Island Road Commercial Plan Development. The request is to rezone 9.7 acres from agricultural and commercial, which is C1 and C1A, to commercial plan development to permit 121,800 square feet of commercial uses. Staff is recommending approval with conditions. A little bit about the history was touched on by the applicant. I have an old aerial here from 2010 that the old car wash and gas station right in this location with the 3 residential developments down in the southwestern portion of the project. The single family was demolished. The demo permits were in 2007. They all were demolished relatively close together. And the car wash was demoed in 2022. Future land use category, Ms. Crespo went over. This is split in half. You have intensive development that kind of wraps around, touching North Cleveland Avenue, and then wraps around Northeast Pine Island Road. And then the yellow represents all of the sub-outlying suburban, which is a heavy step down from intensive development, working towards the Heron Road and then the residential. Some of the C1A and the intensive development touches the property across the street to the west from Heron Road. So there's a defining line in this region right here for sub-outlying. And what that means is intensive development is typically located on major arterial roads. It can accommodate high densities and high intensities because it has all the urban services to support it. Sub-outlying suburban is more peripheral, and it can handle low densities. It is set up for public services. They may need to be provided in some areas, but it tends to be more of in relation to an urban area. So it's a heavy step down here from the intensive to the sub-outlying. Hence the design being that the warehouse is located in the southwestern corner, which is the sub-outlying suburban, and the preserve down here. So essentially, a portion of the entry road and a portion of that car wash is in sub-outlying, but the corner piece is intensive. Furthermore, we have a mixed-use overlay. So a mixed-use overlay is only in a portion of the property, approximately 3.5 acres, which you see in the purple here. So mixed-use overlay, what that does is it allows for a reduction in the amount of open space. The designing of the buffers are reduced, particularly right-of-way buffers are 5 foot wide in mixed-use overlay, as well as a parking reduction associated with the future land use category that you're in. There's a coefficient that gives you a reduction in the required parking. However, in this case, we are in the mixed use overlay, but in Land Development Code 10-424, if there is a use listed in 10-424 that you're proposing on a site, the overriding buffering requirement overrides the mixed-use overlay, overrides the North Fort Myers community, which I'll get into in a minute. So the applicant is proposing a car, or in this case, in this section of the world, the fast food, convenience food and beverage, the gas station. Both of those uses are listed in 10-424 in Chapter 34 supplementary districts to have enhanced buffering. So when we get to the buffering section, this is where I'll touch on why there's not just a 20-foot wide buffer around here per the North Fort Myers, or why there's not just a 5-foot buffer in the MUO. Because if we weren't a car or a convenience food and beverage or fast food, this would be 5 feet per the MUO. If this was just an office building or storage building, it would be 5 feet. The applicant's providing 25 feet all the way around this because of the uses being proposed, and making it consistent all the way around, even with the automotive repair down here that isn't display sale, which would require 25. So there's an enhancement happening along this area that wouldn't be if it was a different use. So 10-424 is very important in this because it gives the list of uses that have to follow the supplementary districts in 34. And that's just in the purple area. So you can see that the property is bisected by this, which makes it, we're kind of in, we're out, we're in, we're out. And it makes it confusing for deviations, as well as being in the North Fort Myers community plan area. So this whole entire development is in the North Fort Myers community plan area, specifically in the commercial corridor, because it's located on Northeast Pine Island Road and 41. It is in a neighborhood center, which requires the interconnections and public open space. That got cut off, but it's a public information meeting, which Ms. Crespo went over. It was February 6th of 2024. It was held in the community, and the documentation is attached to the staff report. So the North Fort Myers, which we're going to go on into the buffering in Chapter 33, requires a whole different set of buffers. But North Fort Myers community plan, anything on buffering is trumped by the mixed use overlay unless you're one of the uses in 10-424. So we're doing this dance throughout this, which gets confusing. So I'll go over the compatibility portion, because what the staff and applicant have tried to do with this plan is to make consistent buffering throughout, whether they be enhanced or whether it be granted through deviations, to get enhancement and compatibility with the surrounding uses. So the character of the area, Ms. Crespo went over in detail. We do have Merchants Crossing. This has recently become, it's in the mixed use overlay, a portion of it, and it has become a series of mixed uses. So you have intense commercial development, you have the multifamily component that's been added to the north. To the west, we have a portion along Heron Road that is in the unincorporated Lee County section that is single family homes along Heron. Even within the mixed use overlay, we have some single family homes that are in the intense development region and then the sub-outlying. And then as you see, the hatching here represents the city of Cape Coral. In the city of Cape Coral, Judd Creek Boulevard is abutting these developments in here, these single-family homes, as well as the multifamily. You have a gas station out in front here, intense development, and then a preservation area towards the back, towards the south, sorry. And then towards the east, you have 41, you have a large, intense commercial development with Walmart and the out parcels in conjunction with the Walmart. And then to the south is Pineapple. You do have this development right here, which is an automotive repair. I think they do air conditioning repair in automobiles. And then you have vacant commercial neighborhood down beyond Pineapple. This kind of goes in detail as to what is surrounding. I'm not going to go through each one, but it kind of gives you an idea as to what is happening in this region. So a lot of this over here is in the mixed use overlay now. Mixed use overlay is relatively new in the last 5-6 years. Even in up in this portion up here, it has extended. So you do have these residents that live on Heron that all throughout the review of this development, we've been very sensitive to with the type of buffering and the step down in the uses as well as how the site is being developed with the buildings. I'll get into that a little bit more. So I've overlaid the development onto the aerial, kind of lining it up as best I could to what you see here. So if you remember, all of this up in here was in intensive development that was hugging Northeast Pine Island Road, and it kind of went over in this region over here. So this is all intensive. And then the intensive changes around here, where then it becomes sub-outlying suburban. So you can see that the intensification comes from this corner right here, which could be the convenience food and beverage or fast food, to a lesser. The car wash, yes, intense. The hours of operation could be limited. However, the working part of this car wash, the drive aisles where people would go in and out of, are all on the exterior, further away from the residential, with the 30-foot buffer in here. So instead of flipping it and having all the workings, so you come in to the car wash this way and have all of this section on that side to the west, the building is pushed up against this way. So there's no driveway on this backside. This is all open space buffer. And what you see before you is the open space portion of the master concept plan. So there's a second sheet to the master concept plan that has the open space defined on it. It has the regular open space and the public open space. The public open space is what's required in the neighborhood commercial part of North Fort Myers. So you can see where the intensification is lessened by the positioning of this building, the working driveway interior to the site. This has been mentioned before. This is a lesser use, the outdoors or the indoor storage facility, and then the preservation area. So I kind of wanted to go over the lay of the land with the surrounding uses and the sensitivity that staff took in reviewing this. And as you work towards the east, it gets more intense. The buffers become lesser on this side because we have a 30-foot here, and then this becomes 25 all the way down. This is a 15, and this becomes 30-foot in the preserve, 30-foot on the southwestern corner as you work up. So I wanted to kind of cover that. I'm going to go into detail on the bufferings. The deviations that are being proposed is the wider throat on this entrance point here. Staff or the land development code is 35-foot maximum. The applicant is requesting a 56-foot. And staff looked at it when staff was reviewing it as a support towards the storage facility because of moving trucks or things coming in, larger trucks to make this turn, to come in and make the turn. I'm not an engineer, so I can't lay claim to that, but looking at it for that turn to come in and then make that quick turn to the storage facility was how we were looking at it. Looking at this area up in here as being served by the right in, right out, and the right in, right out here for this section of that intensification. So that is how we looked at it as staff in improving that deviation 1. Deviation 2 is the parking reduction based on the Arborwood Village parking study. There's a loading zone here for drop-off, pickup here, which staff looked at as being an area where you would drop off, come out, leave, or you would park to go in, get something, and leave. And we looked at that as part of that Arborwood study in conjunction with this site plan to be able to grant deviation 2. Deviation 3 I'm going to get to, and that's that internal buffer, because that's where we're doing the dance between North Fort Myers, mixed use overlay, and then the fast food, convenience food and beverage, car wash code in 34. So we're jumping from 10, 34, 33. And so that's where staff and applicant believe we still need the deviation from a 20-foot required buffer to going down to a 15, and I'll go over that a little bit more. The traffic compatibility, staff looked at this. The applicant provided their traffic impact statement. Department of Transportation reviewed, provided a staff memorandum stating that there's sufficient capacity to accommodate new trips. The arterial roads to the north and the east, the main access, provide a sufficient way to get in and out of the site. The self-storage is a low trip generator on Heron, the local road, and North Cleveland Avenue, and it won't have a detrimental effect on the surrounding uses. With or without the property, the roadways are failing and will need some sort of off-site improvements, which will be looked at and reviewed at time of development. Order cannot be looked at time of zoning at this time. The applicant has provided the somewhat details of that extension of the turn lane on Northeast Pine Island Road, as well as some of the road improvements that will go on 41, working with FDOT on both of those. So here's the buffering. Going step by step. So this is the north property line. This is Pine Island Road. There's that turn lane improvement that Mr. Treesh was talking about. So this is a 25-foot wide buffer to support the fast food, convenience food and beverage store, as well as the car wash or the gas station. Chapter 34, 1353 requires this. This portion is in the mixed use overlay. This portion is not. All of it's in the North Fort Myers Code. North Fort Myers Code 33-1581 requires a 20-foot buffer on right-of-ways. Mixed use overlay requires a 5-foot, unless you're a listed use. Both of these are listed uses in 10-424. So it sends you to the supplementary district, which requires a 25-foot wide buffer. So that's the north property line. The south property line on Pineapple is all in the North Fort Myers Code. It doesn't really touch, the mixed use overlay is over in this area. So this requires the 15-foot wide type D buffer in this region. The buffer along Heron is required to be a 25-foot buffer with a double hedge and 5 trees per 100 linear feet in this region right here, or I'm sorry, along 41, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong location. 41, to support the fast food, convenience food and beverage, or the gas station. There's an auto service station down here that's providing the enhancement. So this is all the same buffer. This would be required a 5-foot, because it's in the mixed use overlay. So this section is in the mixed use overlay. This is not in a supplementary district, so it would be a 5-foot buffer. This portion is in the supplementary district. It would be a 25-foot buffer by code.
So where does it drop down to 5?
It would drop down to 5 here if we didn't have an enhancement in this region right here.
25 for the length of it.
Because what staff is trying to do is have a consistent buffer,
Right.
a consistent look to the site. So this is the internal access way. So the mixed use overlay is covering this section right in here. The auto service station would be required a 5-foot internal buffer to this right of way. It's providing a 15. This area right in here is the convenience food and beverage or fast food, which requires a 15-foot wide buffer per 34. So this is 34, 15 for internal roads, This is the MUO, 5-foot, but providing an enhanced 15-foot per 34 to match what's across the street. So this is all matching in the MUO. As we work towards the west, we have car wash, needs to meet 34, 15-foot for internal access way. Then the warehouse, which is not in the MUO, mixed use overlay. It's in the North Fort Myers, which requires a 20-foot right-of-way buffer to the right-of-way. The applicant is providing 15. This is where the deviation is needed in this region right here. Because North Fort Myers requires the right-of-way buffer is called a type D as in dog, has the same content, 5 trees every 100 linear feet, double staggered hedgerow, but it's 20 feet on the right-of-way. So in a way to have consistency along this internal access way, to provide all 15, this would need that deviation. It gets extremely,
Deviation 3.
and that was deviation 3 that was withdrawn.
But now it's back.
But now it's back because we got all topsy-turvy with the mixed-use overlay in this section because it cuts it in here. So this portion is in, this portion is out.
So where does the deviation begin?
Deviation would begin, it would begin on the, like right where the warehouse is. It's gonna be right where that blue spot is, this way, this way. And there's the 3 where it used to be, because I have the original MCP before we pulled it off. So the original MCP had it right here, from this point to this point.
So both sides of that internal road will be similarly landscaped.
And talking through this, standing up here, and we can work on the conditions, there's enhancements happening all along here because of that mixed use overlay. Because if you're not one of the special uses and supplementary on a right-of-way, you're 5 feet. So this auto service on 41 could potentially do 5 feet, but we need to condition it to have that enhancement all along. Because right now it's showing 25. Because we're jumping in, we're jumping out. We're in North Fort Myers, we're in mixed use, we're in a supplementary district. So this site, not only is it outlying suburban and intensive step down, we're like swirling kaleidoscope in here with code too. Based on the uses, based on North Fort Myers, based on the mixed use development or mixed use overlay being half in, half out. So I wanted to take the time to kind of like go over that in detail because compatibility tends to link up with buffering and the way you design the site for your buildings and your intensifications on the site. So sometimes the buffering can provide screening and compatibility for an intense use. So this would be Heron. So Heron is a 30-foot wide buffer all the way down. The reason it's a 30-foot type F buffer is because part of the drive for this car wash, yes, it's abutting the right-of-way, but we call it the 125-foot rule. If you have drives, parking within 125 feet of a single-family use, you have to provide an F buffer. So the F buffer is running all the way down this. Even though we have preserve abutting, we have some drive aisles within 125 feet here, and then we have no driving behind this building, but we are in close proximity to these single-family uses. So staff work with the applicant to put the 30-foot type F to be compatible, to have consistency all the way down Heron, so it was a cohesive development. So it all looks the same. And there's a condition in the preserve area that requires the restoration that Barrett was talking about that 6-foot restoration trees, anything that planted along here that meets a 30-foot for restoration must meet the planting requirements for the F buffer, which is increased heights on the trees and shrubs along this area right here. So the open space straddles too. So outside of the mixed use overlay, you have a 30% requirement for your open space. If you're in the mixed use overlay, you have a 20% on large developments. So we have a straddling happening with this too. And so that's where the separation. So 6.22 acres is outside of the mixed use overlay. And then the 3.49 acres is inside. And so that's how the open space is derived. Half of that is represented in the indigenous open space, which is in this area right here, which does have some indigenous scattered in it. But the applicant is restoring, and through the restoration process is receiving the credits for the size of the preserve being 1 acre and adjacent to right-of-ways. So it gets 135% credit. This is the indigenous restoration list. There was some talk about the 48-hour letter and how the stormwater management was being designed to have outfall into this preserve. This preserve is an upland preserve. The flux code, how we view the habitat numbers on this, is an upland preserve according to the environmental review, and the restoration being designed is all upland species. So if we were to go forward with the drainage or the surface water management, all of the efforts being put forth for restoration would die because it wouldn't survive the outfall. And then I noted on this slide that condition 7 is the height requirements for that F buffer when they're doing the restoration. So these plants right here, anything that goes in there will have to meet the requirements of that F buffer in the code. So urban services are being provided. This is kind of looked at as partially an infill project because it was developed. So there are urban services. There is bus stops in close proximity. EMS and fire is located to the south, closer to the bridge.
So-
Let's go ahead.
It's Lee County Utilities for water, but FGUA for sewer, right?
Yes, correct. Yes, there is a letter in there, sorry. The FGUA is providing services. So the commercial lead plan compliance, staff does find that this is compatible through the site design standards that we went through and the enhancements that are being provided. Though some are being met through the type F buffer along Heron Road, they're being carried over all up and down Heron. So not only do you have a 125-foot rule happening in sporadic areas, but we're carrying that buffer all the way down to provide screening for the single family across the street. The positioning of the car wash was looked at as being, we flipped it at one point because the driveway part of it, the working part of the car wash was on the Heron Road side, which would have had the vacuums and things like that happening. So by flipping it to the internal, you have more of that intensification geared towards the internal, towards the fast food, convenience food and beverage, or the gas station. So the storage facility and the preserve are less intense, as been mentioned several times. So that's kind of how Heron was looked at for that step down in the outlying suburban. And then the adequate facilities, and then the compatibility with existing planned residential uses. We looked at the south, of course, there's nothing going on with Pineapple. Across the street is the CN2, and then you have some AG2 property. The buffering along that is compatible with the land development code. Heron was really the sensitive spot because of the existing residential up and down there.
In terms of compatibility with development on Heron Road, was there any discussion on aligning the car wash parallel with Pine Island Road versus Heron?
No. And that's something that, I mean, even if you look at that and you align the car wash so it's parallel, the building is parallel with Northeast Pine Island Road,
That
you're
would put it all
still,
in the mixed-use overlay.
you're still gonna have that circulation on that piece closer to the folks on Heron Road. By putting that building perpendicular, it kind of provides, and no circulation around the outside to the west of that building, and it's all buffer, it kind of shoves all like the workings of the car wash to the internal part. And the only thing that really, because the 125-foot rule is sporadic, because how the folks come in, and I
They're
can.
coming in from the south, right? Because the blowers will be on the north end.
So you come in this way and you're gonna come in and like you have the circulation coming around right here. And then the vacuum situation is internal. So everything was pushed to the internal instead of this part being out here and this building being internal. So that's, if we did it where the building was parallel, you would still have this inner working happening. So I
My
understand
concern was the blowers of the car
the
wash.
car wash itself as you come out.
That's coming out, I feel like that should be oriented toward Pine Island Road, right? Because we've got those residents.
So it would be the circulation would come in and go around, and then you would be leaving.
I mean, because you look at what's adjacent, we've got vacant at the north end, right, where the mixed-use overlay is. Then we start having single-family homes, right? So it seems like you want the business end of that car wash oriented toward the mixed-use overlay, oriented toward Pine Island Road. And because this is an issue because of the dramatic step down we have in the category there.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the blowers, but the vacuums were because you have multiple vacuums. And that's why, I mean, we normally don't get on a master concept plan really in depth of like
Right.
how things are going. So looking at it, and if they continue to provide that on the master concept plan, then it was a point of conversation.
Right, and I think it's detailed master concept plan is certainly appropriate in this case, even though I'm a big fan of the bubble plan, because of this dramatic step down that we have.
Right.
And not only categories, but actual uses, right?
Right.
Large lot residential.
Because the majority of the vacuums are blocked by the building. So the only thing would be the blowers. So, I mean, we can discuss and work on that for the compatibility of that portion. But going through the urban services, I mean, staff found this sufficient with what we had, and we were able to approve it because of all the enhancements that we did put on this. So staff finds it as conditioned, meets the findings.
And
So
you're
we approve it.
comfortable with the access on Heron, enhanced to handle large vehicles?
The way staff was reviewing it was for the storage facility.
Right, but you understand that there's.
I totally understand. I don't know, sitting here today, listening to testimony, if for trucks only signage or something would work, if it's the tankers.
Right, well, if you have an 18-wheeler in that direction and they see the sign, no tankers, there's no backing up. They're going, right? They got this big wide driveway, they're already in position, they're gonna pull out, right? Head north, get on the pine.
I'm not a traffic engineer, so
Yeah.
I feel real uncomfortable about discussing all that.
I'm more concerned about introducing this type of traffic into this street with this land use category. And I just wanted to know if you thought about it, that's all.
To look at,
Thinking about it now.
Thinking about it now, the throat deviation for that entry point was looked at for the storage, because we were hypersensitive to the storage and the parking deviation.
Okay, lots to think about.
Yep. I'll put the aerial up for the public.
Yes, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Members of the public, I noticed that you had come in after I administered the oath. All testimony and evidence that I accept during these hearings must be taken in under oath. So when you come to the podium, I will swear you in. What I would like you to do after you state what your name is, we're going to put an aerial up on the screen. If you can indicate where you live in relationship to the project, that'll be helpful to us in putting your remarks into context. You may speak as long as you would like, but you only have one opportunity to speak. So please try to organize your thoughts before you go to the podium. Something else I want to let you know is while you can speak here as long as you like, at the final board hearing, they're the final decision makers. I only prepare a recommendation. You will only be permitted 3 minutes to speak. So thinking ahead, you want to crystallize your concerns to those that are most important to you at that stage. But today, you can speak for as long as you like. Sarah Decker.
Hi, I'm Sarah Decker. I live at 100 Heron Road, so I will be close to the car wash.
Okay, can you point to where your house is on this aerial? Okay, thank you.
So my main concern is the fact that there is an entrance on Heron Road. We have children on that road, and I mean, the road already does get busy because of Pine Island. People will use our road for cutting across. Jason's also going to mention it too, dead ending. Heron I don't know if that's something that we could.
Can you shift closer to the microphone, please?
Yeah, okay. So I'm really bad at public speaking, sorry. So is there any way we can move that access point from Heron to Pineapple? Is that something that we can eliminate? Because like you said, the tankers are going to see the sign, but they're still going to go in, and people are still going to use that cut through, and people are still going to fly by. Sorry.
Okay, so you have concern regarding traffic on Heron Road?
Yes. Is there any way we can make sure that there's no entrance road on Heron? Can we put that on? There's already one on Cleveland and there's already one on Pine Island. If there needs to be a third one, can it not be on Heron? Can it please be on Pineapple instead of Heron? Because there are no single family homes on Pineapple.
Right. Well, we'll certainly ask the applicant to consider that.
And then another thing too, I mean, the traffic is already really bad coming out. So if they're going to be adding more traffic, I mean, there's already accidents right here at Northeast Pine Island and Heron. Right here, when you come up, I have a hard enough time right now getting out of Pine Island Road to go. I do a U-turn I go out. So I have to literally put my window down. I have to wave every single person to go, hi, can you let me in, please? Because it's already all the way back. So, I mean, it's already a huge traffic congestion, whatever you would call it. So it's already an issue. And then adding more traffic onto Heron is going to make it an even bigger issue. More accidents and cluster. So that's huge right there too. You're going to have sidewalks. Is that there's going to be sidewalks? Okay, that's good. Speed bumps. We would love speed bumps, but more importantly, I would love no access right there, because just put it on Pineapple instead. There are no single family homes on Pineapple. So if we can just keep Heron blocked away from all the extra cars. And then I also own 438 Heron Road. My dad and brother live down there. So I mean, and then there's a park. So there's other kids right next door that live next to me, and then right adjacent from me as well too. And we all ride all the kids ride their bikes to the park back and forth. And so all these and I'm sure you say there's going to be sidewalks, but no one's going to, cars will just fly by, and it's just not safe for the kids. And where's the hours of operation for the car wash was also a big thing. Like you had mentioned before, that would be nice if there could at least be restricted hours. And yeah, that's my main concern is the access on Heron. If we can just put it on Pineapple instead.
Okay, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Jason Harper.
You swear me in or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you put in the record will be the truth?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jason Harper. I live at 182 Heron Road, which would be here, I believe. I will agree with my neighbor, and safety is probably one of the main concerns. I think one thing that is not accounted for as part of the traffic study, with all due respect to that, is the fact that the apartments behind us have not been fully moved into yet, and people use our road as a cut through. And so now you're asking for another 1,000 cars, and I'm being very conservative in that area, that are going to want to turn right on 41, don't want to wait for the light and use ours. And now you're going to add another actual cut through to 41 with what they're going to build that's going to go straight through to 41. So now you're talking about not only all the residents in the apartments that are trying to cut through, but now people that want to use those facilities also cutting through our road. I mean, we have buses.
How are the apartment dwellers getting to Heron?
Because they are coming out this way, right here, taking a right. This traffic is terrible. They go down here, come to Pineapple, and then turn right. And that happens now with hundreds of cars today, and the apartments aren't even up and running really yet. And so there is a ton of traffic that has a cut through there. And I can appreciate, I know progress is going to happen. I get that. I know that things are going to be developed, and I appreciate all the efforts into buffering our neighborhood. I appreciate you defending our neighborhood as you talk about what is going to be built. But there will be a considerable safety issue for children who live in 1, 2, 3, 4 of the houses that are directly across from that all have kids, one of them being special needs. And now you're asking for a road to be put dead in the middle of that, and then telling me people won't come through there. I don't understand how that is even possible without either dead ending Heron Road completely and forcing people never to go down it because there's no way to get back on Pine Island, or moving some sort of entrance over to Pineapple, which already has a commercial building. Arctic Air is at the corner. And so it's already a commercial feel when you go down that road already, and you force people either to get on Pineapple to come in from 41. But I think it's you're kidding yourself if you don't think people are going to use Heron Road to get into those places, including large vehicles, especially for the storage unit. With the amount of children and people that are already on a residential road. And so I understand that it has to be developed, and that's, and I'm all for moving forward and progress and all of that, but I think there's a serious problem when inviting that kind of traffic to a residential neighborhood. I also am worried, honestly, about what they're going to do with, we have very, very old oak trees, including several of mine that go over the roadway on Heron Road. That makes it an inviting residential roadway. That, am I going to have to be forced to cut all of those, or is somebody going to cut them for me, basically without my permission, because they go over a public road? I get that. But that's what makes our road our road. And now you're saying, well, somebody's got to get through. We got to bring these U-Haul trucks in. What happens if we get a tanker back here? He's going to clip the top of it. So now they're changing the feel and dynamic of our residential road. I'm just going to keep saying that, our residential road, to a commercial road, which it is not. And so I also have serious concerns about where they think all the water is going to go. Because as I hear it, and I could be misinterpreting what they're saying, is that they're going to push water towards the creek. Well, in the last storm we had, water came 2 inches from coming into my home. And now you're asking all of that commercial property. I know it naturally goes that way, and I do get that. But now you're going to build on it and force water to go towards the creek like it naturally does, but at a higher rate in a ditch that is 15 feet from my house. And going to ask me to be okay with that, and I'm not okay with that.
Okay, we'll have somebody clarify that for you, because
Yeah.
there's codes that will address your concerns.
Okay.
We'll have somebody explain that for you.
I would appreciate that, because I just want to make sure that that's also taken care of. And then I would like an explanation how my property value is not going to lower because there's a self-storage that I can see from my front porch. I mean, I understand, again, progress, and I get it. But at the same time, that has to be a consideration of the build.
That I consider under the code criteria that I have to review, just so that you know that
Okay.
there won't be somebody responding to that at this hearing.
Right. But I think the safety thing has to be responded to. I mean, I am the one with a special needs child on the road, and I think we already have got the paperwork going to, we're trying to get speed bumps on the road already. Yeah. And because people have already flying down it, and all we're doing is inviting more people to come down the road, a residential road. And so, I would like for everyone to consider somehow moving the entrances into everything, either away from actual Heron onto Pineapple, or making them only Pine Island and 41, which would make more sense and protect, kids getting off of school buses, which literally happens at the end of Pineapple, and they walk down Heron towards Pine Island.
Put a future land use map up there.
So I think all of that is a concern for the residents that live there. And they're building a house, by the way, where you don't see where there's woods. There's a house being built there currently.
Beth, can you show me approximately where the driveway is going to be?
On Heron,
On
it's
Heron.
going to be, I think I have it up on my PowerPoint I think it's right here, but I could probably get that master concept plan on the,
Across from that house?
yeah, if I can,
Keeps getting better.
go here.
Yep.
So this is overlaid, the master concept plan overlaid onto that aerial that we had up.
All right, and is the property line the edge of the hatched mark on the north end? So up, all the way to corner, is that the property line down there?
Yes.
No, no, I'm talking about going east-west direction on the top.
Down.
No. That white triangle in the north part, is
Right
that
there.
right of way, or is that part of the
That
site?
is right of way. The dark line is the property line because this is a measurement.
Okay, go to go to the east and come down. No, okay.
Go to the east and come down.
Do you see that big triangular piece that's shown in white, large? No, bigger, bigger, there. That, all that. Is that right away or is that the site? Is that right away?
Yes.
Okay, so the property line is the end of the hatch mark.
Yep, because the open space is right here. So you have the hatch right here going across. This is all off-site.
Okay, can I go back to the future land use map?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
you raised some questions to me. I just wanted to have some things clarified.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's hard to work all that out, and I know that you have to fit the maximum amount of stuff in a certain space to make it worth it financially, and I do understand that as someone who's in business. But I also understand that we have to do our best to protect our residential road that is already seeing more than its fair share of traffic already based on the apartments and cutting off the corner of the red light there with hundreds of cars already. And now we're talking about adding a road in the middle between Pineapple and Pine Island in the middle of Heron Road that not only can be used as a cutoff, but there's no reason for people to even go to 41 if they can get where they want to get using a residential road like Heron. And I think that has to be a consideration because of all the kids and families that live there. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that are present? I will close public input. I will go back to staff and the applicant. I think the public raised a couple of issues, particularly with regard to draining. It might be helpful if that could be clarified on the record, how they will not be impacted any further by virtue of the way the stormwater system is designed.
Brett Neverell, Infinity Engineering Group. With respect to the stormwater, we will design to both Lee County and South Florida requirements. We will attenuate, meaning like we will design a pond to hold water and rate it out, meter it out to existing conditions. So if they have 10 CFS going off our site in existing conditions, we would have 10 CFS of flow going out at the same condition, the same time frame. So we will design for 5, 10, 25-year storm events to do that. So there will be no increase in peak discharge rate. And that's the intent of the stormwater pond. It will hold water temporarily and slowly let it out based on historical rate, along with also the water
You
treatment.
understand that? They design the system, everything flows into this detention area and they hold it. It rises up to a certain level and then it'll start to bleed out. And it can't bleed out at a rate faster than how the property today drains to those swales in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they designed this retention area to hold up to a 3-day storm event
Yeah, correct.
worth of water.
And that's standard for any development in the county.
Great, thank you, Alexis Crespo, on behalf of the applicant. So we'll just run through a couple of items that we will look to address with a forthcoming resubmittal. But to touch on a few of the community's comments, and we do understand these homes have been in place for decades in the site. If you can go back to the LIPA aerial and just zoom out a little bit.
wonderful, okay, yep.
I appreciate their comments and the way they address that they understand the site's going to be developed. They understand they're not in a rural or an area that would be generally characterized as residential. This is one street. There's really two streets there that are really an anomaly in this area now. Everything has converted to high density, high intensity, and this is just a remaining remnant of single-family residential that predates the infrastructure improvements, the development of these kind of super center shopping centers, the mixed-use overlay, et cetera. And I believe from your comments you are taking into account the fact that we are in a very unique situation where you have the most intensive future land use category with intensive development on more than half the site, and then it just drops off a cliff to sub-outlying suburban on the other side of the site. So we're definitely trying to balance all those things. There is protections in the Lee Plan and Code for protection of existing residential uses, which is what we need to prove through forthcoming resubmittal. We did look at connecting to Pineapple. The turning movement that people are, the only reason anyone is going to want to get onto Heron or to utilize that is to go up onto Pine Island and make a U-turn. If we direct traffic to Pineapple, they will then proceed to Heron and go along a longer strip of the road, is our belief based upon who's going to want to utilize that access. So we don't believe that connecting to Pineapple will eliminate use of the roadway.
Would prevent trucks from using that roadway probably though. Because they would go
Yes.
in and out of that location and get onto 41.
So what we will certainly address in this forthcoming submittal will be limitations, conditions to prohibit truck traffic, commercial truck traffic onto Heron Road. Certainly we can address and add signage locations to the master concept plan, and our team will coordinate with potentially staff and LCDOT to look at other potential solutions and conditions to prevent truck traffic onto Heron Road, which would also eliminate deviation 1, which was intended to accommodate larger trucks going onto Heron, which is definitely contrary to the discussion we've heard here today. So I submit that we will modify the deviations and then include hopefully several conditions that address the truck traffic onto Heron. We will propose hours of operation limitations. The typical car wash operation is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so we would look to incorporate that into the conditions. We will also look at the orientation of that building. We agree with Beth and looked at it that the building will mitigate noise produced by the vacuums, which would be on the east side of the site. So we wouldn't want to flip the building. Perhaps looking at how the entrance and exits of that building will occur to mitigate noise impacts to the greatest degree will be examined.
I mean, at the very least, I think the blower should be on the north end of the building. That's in the intense land use. It's in the mixed-use overlay or closer to the mixed-use overlay. It's close to an arterial. It's further from the dwellings. You know, I would really like to have you sharpen your pencil on how to make that as compatible as possible with this long-standing neighborhood that is to your west.
Yes. We will definitely be submitting a revised master concept plan. We'll examine reorientation of the building.
I would like you to revisit the dumpster locations, certainly for the self-storage. I see that there's 2 dumpsters right there on Heron Road, which is literally your access is directly across the street from a house.
We will look to eliminate one of those dumpsters and then relocate the remaining dumpster further into the site and away from the western property line.
Okay, I look forward to seeing your revised master concept plan and proposed conditions. Depending on what it looks like, I may reopen the hearing so that there can be additional discussion actually on the record, because we don't normally do like this level of change, and I would like to see the, what this plan looks like with the gas station, what changes. I mean, if it's in the north corner, I'm less concerned about it. My biggest concern is the intensity of development alongside Heron, including the access. So,
Yes, thank you.
okay, so let's set a date.
I think I'm looking at August 30th to provide sufficient time. That's a little over 2 weeks.
Friday, August 30th? Okay, so we'll say Friday, August 30th, end of business. If you need additional time, please send an email to Maria Perez in my office, and we will certainly extend that if you need additional time.
Thank you.
Okay, so the written record in this case will be left open until August 30th, end of business. We are looking for a revised master concept plan that will denote all deviations that you intend to keep. A condition regarding hours of operation on the car wash, clarity on dumpster placement and whatever other signs you intend to post on the site to enhance compatibility with development to the west.
Thank you.
Did I get everything?
Yes.
Those reflect my notes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members of the public, the hearing is going to close now. I'm leaving the written record open for them to submit a revised master concept plan, which is going to reflect site layout and a revised list of conditions that they're proposing for this. When this gets submitted, it's a public record, so if you would like to see a copy of it, you could just make a request of the Department of Community Development. In any event, I will be incorporating this into my recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, which you will receive a copy of via email if you provided us with your email address. You will also receive further notice of the final board hearing via email if you provided the address. And then you can speak to the Board of County Commissioners at that meeting. Just a reminder, though, you're only going to get 3 minutes at that stage. So you really want to crystallize what you want to say so you can get it out in 3 minutes before they get the hook out. Okay, thank you, everyone, for coming.
You know, I just realized that too. My neighbor who's next to me, their driveway is right across from that.
Okay, I can't take any more public input right now. And if you, your neighbors didn't participate at this hearing, they're not going to be able to speak to the board. That doesn't mean they can't come, but they will not be able to address the board unless they were on the record at this hearing. Now, what I've told the applicant is that depending on what they submit, if I feel as though I have to reopen the hearing, I may do that. And if I do that, you'll be notified and you can make arrangements to come again. But any event, if I don't, you will receive a copy of my recommendation.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.